year. Definitely looking at some more rain for the Carolinas down in southeastern Georgia. Developing thunderstorms right now over northern Florida. Could be reaching all the way down towards Orlando and Tampa a little bit later on this afternoon. But once again, we're looking at some light to moderate snowfall in and around Washington, D.C. at this time. Should be looking at some light snow probably for the next several hours. And if you believe the computer models, well, the numbers are just in, maybe 2 or 3 inches of new snowfall for Washington after this point through later on this afternoon before it tapers off very quickly early on this evening. Let's show you what's going on as we look off towards the north, once again around New York City and points to the west. Not much is going on here. A lot of this is loft, not even reaching the ground. Very light snowfall around Philly. You can see even some breaks in the action one more time to the west and southwest of Washington. So this may not be lasting too long, that moderate snowfall, but more developing to your southwest. Winter weather update is yet.
Rich, we've had a little bit of light snow this morning. It started about 2:30 this morning here in the district. Roadways are in great shape. The temperature right now 34, 32 at Dulles, so as you would expect, if you're watching from outside the Beltway, there may be some slushy spots, especially on the elevated surfaces. As we are standing here on Pennsylvania Avenue, we've jumped up Pennsylvania a few blocks now up to 3rd Street. We're right here at the base of the Capitol on the west side, literally the back side of the Capitol. And you can see visibility isn't bad. We've got a bit of a breeze coming in from the east and northeast, and we are still looking, Rich, for some heavier snow later on this afternoon into this evening as the upper level system comes in from the Midwest towards the East Coast, and we get that storm off Myrtle Beach to kind of crank up and bring some Atlantic moisture in.
Mike, we think that's going to happen right now. You do have a bit of a break. I was actually talking with my sister up in Baltimore, and they have a little pocket of heavier snow there. But down in D.C., we expect that to settle in later this afternoon. That snow is actually falling pretty heavily back into the Appalachians.
Well, the road crews have been out bright and early. They've been salting and sanding necessary areas. Obviously, with this kind of situation at this point, no plowing has been necessary, but everything's in great shape. They're in certainly good practice after last winter, and considering Washington's only had 2.5 inches of snow so far this season, they're due for some snowfall, and we're still looking for the 3 to 6 inches, especially beyond the Beltway. We've already reported 2 inches at Dulles Airport, and that is certainly outside of the 495 corridor. And this evening, late this afternoon and this evening seems to be the window for the heaviest snowfall, and we'll be following the situation from here. But again, Rich, it's a go on the roadways now around the Washington area. No problems right now, but we could see some later tonight with additional snow and temperatures falling back below freezing across the area.
All right, thank you very much, Mike, for that report. We'll be checking back with you, of course, throughout the day. Well, that was Mike's Center, which is across the Carolina coast. This low is going to make its way out to sea eventually, and what we are going to see is that snow pull its way right on in. Here's that heavier snow back on into West Virginia and Kentucky. That's going to be moving away toward Baltimore and D.C. You can see the breaks just west of D.C., but the heavier snow will pick up again. This is probably several hours away. Well, as we check some of the snow, the forecast calling for possibly 3 to 6 inches anywhere from maybe Baltimore and D.C., but especially the grassy areas today because the temperatures are hovering near freezing or just above freezing. So for traveling, that is great news for you. Although if you live in some of the outlying areas north and west of Baltimore, D.C., of course, that's where the trouble spots usually are, and that is what we are finding. So this very dry winter, this snowless winter across the Northeast, maybe getting a little bit of pickup here across Baltimore, D.C., up to Philadelphia, all the way up to Willow Grove. We are looking at some snow. Philadelphia, just as a reminder, last year a big one, 65 inches so far, less than 2. You're adding to that total this morning, and just a slight bit as Philadelphia is on the northern end. New York City, a few flurries in town, nothing huge, 4.5 inches so far this winter. And finally Boston, this is where the biggest difference is. Yes, last year's huge snow, we are looking at this year 17.2 inches. So yeah, that's some, but compared to
Easter, however, it does have some of the same effects. Area of low pressure along the coast, pushing all that wind and water toward the coast, so coastal flood watches are in effect. This is for Saturday afternoon, this afternoon through tomorrow morning At that point, our low should be far enough away that this will not be a problem any longer. We'll see. We'll watch it. In the meantime, it looks like a big mess around New York City, but they're just reporting cloudy skies, no snow at this point. Gusty east wind. So again, we are getting that east wind with that area of low pressure. Some snow out on Long Island, very light. Back towards Philadelphia so far. Before today, you'd had 1.7 inches of snow total for the season. Quite a bit different than last year, isn't it? Well, you probably get, I don't know, a couple of inches today. Looks like a fair amount of snow right through here, down through Dover, Baltimore, Washington. Mainly snow, although right along the coast we are getting rain. So this is the rain zone from Salisbury down through the Norfolk area. Rain, rest of it snow, and we're going to end up again with about 3, 4, 5 inches, maybe a little bit more than that. Could be a little slick, doesn't take much to slicken things up on the roadways. I want to show you the temperatures here because you can see they're below freezing through this area and real borderline near the coastline. So in some places where it's snowing, it doesn't have to be below freezing to snow, but that snow's not really sticking, at least to the roadways. And that's what's happening in Washington, and you'll see that when we go back talk to Mike in a few. Weatherscope is sponsored by Quick Joe. There are good ice melters, then there's the best.
This is Weatherscope.
The east is now the focus of a storm that already has dumped snow and heavy rain in the central U.S. Good afternoon, I'm Joel Brown. Snow is falling from Kentucky to the Mid-Atlantic region. We have live coverage. Here's Rich Johnson in our forecast center with the details.
Well, thank you very much, Jill. Indeed, we do have live coverage. In just about another minute, I'll be speaking with Mike Seidel. He's in Washington, D.C., and he'll give us the latest on the conditions in D.C. First of all, I can show you some scenes. The San Juans picked up some heavy snow. South central Kansas, heavier area there, more than 6 inches. And then the storm weakened just a bit as it made its way up through the Ohio Valley. Now the storm is heading toward the Mid-Atlantic. The central Appalachians are looking at some heavier snows. I suspect some of the conditions, we can see a low pressure center down toward the Carolina coast. This is going to make its way offshore this way and eventually hugging up the coast. So we think that maybe some of New England will be clipped, but most of the snow is likely to fall right in this area right here. That's Baltimore and D.C. That is where the heaviest snow is likely to occur. And it's going to snow for a while, too. Well, join us now is Mike Seidel. Mike, we talked with you a little bit earlier, saw the snow on the ground. Has the snow picked up at all?
Not a whole lot during the past half hour, Rich. We're still seeing basically the same intensity. Light snowfall here in front of the Capitol.
So light snow right there. I can tell you that on our radars as we continue to follow the radar in West Virginia, certainly a lot more snow, and it is heading to your area. So we think by later this afternoon you might be looking at much heavier snow, and there could be significant accumulations, maybe another 4 or 5 inches possible.
Well, so far we've had about an inch here on the grounds here. Actually, I should have said we're on the west side of the Capitol, behind the Capitol. You can see the ground is white. We have some tourists out today across the street, the National Gallery of Art. A lot of people showing up for that. And as we look up the street, Randy's shooting up 3rd Street. We're at the corner of 3rd and Pennsylvania, and you can see a truck up there. It's a snowplow with a big truckload of sand, and they're sitting in preparation for the heavier snow, which is expected to move in later this afternoon into this evening. The streets right now in Washington are wet, with the temperature now at 34 at National, 32 at Dulles Airport. So any problems right now are purely relegated beyond the Beltway Ridge, outside in suburbia, especially the northern and western suburbs, out in Loudoun, Fairfax counties, also out in far Montgomery County. If you're going out 270 past Gaithersburg out towards Frederick, you may run into some slushy accumulations on some of the elevated surfaces, the bridges and overpasses. But again, generally, as a rule, the highways, including the Beltway, the BW Parkway, are in excellent shape right now. That will probably change this evening with additional snow, heavier snowfall, and a bit of a drop in the temperature.
All right, thank you very much, Mike. We'll talk with you probably about another 20 minutes from now. That's Mike Seidel in D.C., and I was checking some of the reports also. Yeah, the heaviest of the snow, that has been north and west of D.C., and actually out toward the Shenandoah Valley, some snow out toward Lynchburg and Roanoke. Around Richmond, you're going to see some snow, too. I know it's raining now, and it is a cold rain. It's sort of that yucky rain out there. 34 degrees, it's raining today. It is definitely going to change over. There could be some accumulation, too, maybe a few inches. Up to Baltimore and D.C., there's still potential for another shot of snow. I'll show you why. First of all, let's look at the radar, and here's the close-up of Baltimore and D.C. Mike Seidel in D.C., in the heart of Washington. And look off to the west. Mike was mentioning Loudoun County. You can see the snow which is coming in. It is all moving off this way. Also, recently I spoke with my sister. She lives over toward White Marsh. There was about an inch or 2 of snow on the ground, but likewise up to Baltimore, most cases we are looking at slushy roads. North and west of town, different stories though. Here's the situation, low pressure center here. Again, that is going to move up the coast. We are waiting for this shot of snow in West Virginia, also Western Virginia, to make its way through. The second part of an upper level disturbance is going to come through. We think that's going to happen by later this afternoon into this evening. Temperatures are going to cool down. Roadway conditions are likely to deteriorate, so just keep that in mind. We're going to be heading out later this evening. That wraps up our storm situation.
And weak system in the west, intensifying some as it heads to the east and picking up more moisture. So it's not a big deal today, but it may be more. In the east, our snow and rainstorm also producing thunderstorms farther to the south. Now, we do have a line of storms
supplying some cold air to the much as 8 inches of snow overnight from that fairly weak-looking system. Look at a radar here over the mid-Atlantic. Some moderate to heavy snow, south-central New Jersey, northern Delaware, brief break around D.C., and then as we head south and west of town into the Shenandoah Valley, we've had reports of some heavier snow with 2 to 6 inches already. In southwesternmost Virginia, the mountains getting a little bit of heavier snow so far, and you can see what appears even to be some fairly fast-moving pockets of rain here as we come off the mid-Atlantic coast. Well, stay tuned. We're going to have a little bit more analysis on this particular weather system as it makes its way off the Carolina coast today and heads out into the Atlantic. And in fact, coming up at the bottom of the hour, we're going to have a kind of an in-depth look at the storm so far. Stay tuned.
If you want to